Good afternoon, good evening, good to see you. Let's go. Here we are. It's Daryl Williams Jr. Super excited that you are here, and I'm looking at this and noticing I'm on the wrong camera. Let's fix that immediately. Come on now. That's not how it's supposed to go. Here it is. So here on this Tuesday night live, you know that I am here live as well. I want to make sure that you know that you are in the right place. And knowing that you're in the right place means that we are talking about that classroom tweak. Let's make sure we get that. Come on now. The classroom management tweak that instantly gets students to listen. That's what we're talking about tonight. If that's what you came for, that's why we are here. You need to know who I am. Listen, I'm Daryl Williams Jr., and I help new teachers become the teachers that they've always wanted to be and make the impact they've always wanted to make. Right here, right now, I want you to start in the comment section and let me know in one word, how would you describe your teaching style? How would you describe your teaching style in just one word? I'm looking at the comment section. Shout out to you. How would you describe your teaching style? You just let me know. How would you describe your teaching style? I think if it was me, my teaching style would be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I would say energetic. I would say excited. I would say um, encouraged, encouraging. I'm definitely an encouraging person when I'm teaching. But let me know in the comment section what your teaching style is. What your teaching style is. All right, we got Marshawn saying creative. I see you, Marshawn. Adrian saying lit is lit. I don't. Is that because I don't know? You're a late teacher. Are we teaching literacy? Is that what we're trying to say? Like it's lit. I don't know. Just let me. But that's all caps. No, that means that you are just super excited. Marshawn is just super creative. I like that. Meaning you're just coming with different ideas, um, trying different things a lot of the time. That's super important. I'm glad that you had that availability there. That's awesome. Let me know where y'all are tuning in from. I see Marshawn. I feel like I've seen him before. Adrian, this might be you might be new to this. Let's know where you're coming in from. We're here every Tuesday night. Answering questions and teaching something specific. And like I said tonight, we're going to talk about how to get those students to listen, and that's going to be super important. I also want to let you know that if you stay until the end, you will receive your certificate for CEUs, right? Certificate for CEUs. Let's do it. All right, Charlotte, good to see you. I live in Charlotte. I know that doesn't have anything to do with anything, but good to see you, Charlotte. Trying to be as calm as possible. Let me know why you're saying you're trying to be as calm as possible. Is that because you are like uh you know, there's a lot going on. You trying to keep it simple. Like, why are you trying to be as calm as possible, Charlotte? Let me know. All right. All right, cool. And you're right here in North Carolina. That's awesome. Southwest Florida in the house. My Sean is in Chicago. Maybe that's where I recognize you from. I'm up in Chicago. I was there in January. Is that maybe that's where we met? I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember. But shout out to all of you that are here tonight that are looking to make an impact here on your students' lives. So I'll give you a rundown of what it's going to look like. Ginger, shout out to you. Sorry, I got distracted. I saw a name pop up. Ginger. Oh man, so great to see you, Ginger. I know that's one of our impact members. Shout out to you. But they're in the community. I just was at Ginger School in Texas a couple of weeks ago, and she's just an amazing person. Just great energy. So glad to see you, Ginger. You're creative, energetic. Depends on the grade. Now I get that. All right, all right. Oh man. All right. Oh, so check this out. So Charlotte is brand new. It started on January 6th. So right at the start of the semester or the start of the year, right? Dual language, fifth grade. All right. The co-teachers calm and collected. So you gotta stay calm. All right, there we go. So there's a lot to learn. But let's show Ginger, sorry, let's show Charlotte some love. Shout out to you, Charlotte, for taking this on brand new. Glad that you are getting this thing going. You're in the right place because this community is a place of people that we just want to help you be the best version of yourself. Jasenia, glad that you are here. Shout out to you, another Impact community member. Shout out to you, always popping in. Love to see it. All right, creative Betty, a little bit of each. There you go. We got it. Shout out to all of y'all, man. Thank you for being here. And Charlotte, honestly, this is the place to be if you're like getting started, looking for ways and get ready to go. All right. AMS. I remember you from the last call, from the last two calls actually. I just you gotta remind me your name again. I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong. Remind me your name again. I want to use it. But I remember you from the last couple of calls. Glad that you made it on time because we are diving right in right now. So I always have to see who's there, who's in the chat. Lori from the come on, Impact is coming through tonight. If you don't know what Impact is our community of teachers that are surrounding each other on our educational journey, and we're showing up. We have uh, we discuss some of the things that are going on, issues, problems, solutions, strategies. Like it's just an amazing place to be. And I'm glad that you all are showing up here tonight. All right, Marlene is saying, I love teaching. Management is an issue, and thank you for helping. Marlene, literally, Marlene, tonight is you get comfortable because tonight, honestly, is you are going to be able to take some things away that are going to help with that management. So, Marlene, I'm going to be checking on you, like for real. Make sure you are you are there. AMS is flexible. All right, Anne Marie, that's it. That's it. That's it, Anne Marie. Anne Marie, there we go. And Ginger, of course, showing love to Charlotte. Come on, this is a great career and place to be. All right, so here's what we are going to do. As I promised, and remember, you stay to the end, you get access to that. You get access to that QR code where you can get credit for tonight if your school will accept it. Now we're talking about the classroom management tweak that instantly gets students to listen. I know that there's a lot of us, right, that gonna instantly get students to listen. Marlene, this is you. Like we're instantly trying to get students to listen and pay attention so that they can learn and grow. That's exactly what is going to happen. One of the things that I've been doing is I'm actually in 30 seconds, I'm going to give a pitch as if I'm starting the or a hook as if I'm starting out the podcast episode. And the reason why is because this is going to be a podcast episode. So thank you for being the live studio audience as we record season 3, episode 2 of the podcast. If you don't know about the podcast, it's New Teacher Big Impact, the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. And what's going to happen is I thought it was so great because what I was doing, full transparency, I was here on Tuesday nights. I'm getting my screen ready. I was here on Tuesday nights, and then I'll go record the podcast on Sunday mornings. And sometimes the content was very similar. So what I decided to do was, what if I just record on Tuesday nights and just, what do they say? Kill two birds with one stone, right? But also be able to interact with the audience live. I think that'll be so amazing. So that's where we are, and that's what's about to happen. All right. So let me read over the hook one more time because I can't. The thing is, I can't mess up. And normally I don't. Normally when I record the podcast, I just go straight through, right? So you got it. The only part that I mess up is the hook. So I got to read through it one more time and make sure we got it. Lori, I know you're excited about that. Let me get actually my mouse too. All right, here we go. Come on, Dr. Sean Woodley. Here we go. Appreciate you being here. See, now you threw me off, Sean, because I told the people I was about to get into the hook. I was about to do the thing. Now you threw me off. I got to get my mind right again. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Um, speaking of Dr. Woodley, boom, he is one of the presenters in our upcoming Complete 180 conference, which I'm super excited to tell you about later in just a little bit. And so is Lori. Lori Henderson is also one of the presenters in the Complete 180 conference. And if you're interested in what that is all about, hold on tight and I'll let you know. All right. So check this out. Here we go. We are going to dive into this episode recording. If you have questions, now's a good time to get it ready and going on. No worries, Sean. You're good. You're good. You got it. Here we go. All right, read over. You guys, you can't make me laugh on this because I told you I have one. I got one take. I have one take. Marlene, you can't make me laugh. Here we go. Jasenia, I already feel it. All right. Okay. Let me set the stage. You planned the perfect lesson, right? You have the copies already made, the materials are where they need to be, and you even remembered to change the date on the board. But then as you get into the lesson, you realize that nobody is paying attention. That's super frustrating, right? Yeah, here's the thing. Effective instruction is not just about the perfect lesson. Because without this common overlooked classroom management tweak, that lesson could fall flat and on deaf ears, and nobody's gonna know what's going on. But when you get this tweak, when you get this, that's what's going to allow students to be more engaged, and you can manage the classroom with less stress without raising your voice or having to repeat yourself. Which is why in this episode, you're going to learn the proven classroom management strategy that master teachers are using to take control of their classroom and make a big impact. Impact begins now. All right, that's the hook. You got it. I stumbled through it a little bit, but I feel like with some editing, it'll be good enough. All right, let's get it. Glad that you're here. I'm looking at the comment section. We are ready to go. Boom, boom. I'm diving right into it. Let's do it. If we're just meeting, I'm former terrible teacher turned two-time teacher of the year, Daryl Williams Jr. And I know what it's like to struggle trying to teach to a class where nobody's listening. But I also know how great it feels to figure it out and make the impact that make the impact that my students deserve. That's why in this video, in this episode of the podcast, we are going to be covering how to get students to listen in your class so that you can deliver the impact that you want. Right now, listen, I know what is going on. I'm looking at the comment section, I'm looking at the chat, and teachers are saying, I'm trying to manage the classroom, I'm preparing these lessons, I'm doing the absolute best that I can, but for some reason, students are not getting it. That's why we're going to dedicate this whole entire episode to making sure that we get that for you. But not just that, because as you know, there are several different segments in this episode, and we're just diving into segment number one, which is known as the teacher toolbox. The teacher toolbox is where I'm going to help you with a new strategy that you can use, or not new or old, but just a proven strategy that you can use in your classroom to make an impact immediately, right? And after we go through the teacher toolbox, the next tip that we're going to use is we are going to go into the segment number two. After the teacher toolbox is a new teacher quick tip, which is a quick strategy that you can use immediately. Segment number three is a teacher's lounge. And this is not the teacher's lounge where we are laughing at each other, we're talking about students, things like that. No, we're bringing questions and we're bringing actionable solutions to those questions. So if you are somebody who has a question, if you're here live, put your question in the chat and we'll get to it when we get to the teacher's lounge. And lastly, of course, we're going to leave like any good classroom would with an exit ticket. Segment four is the exit ticket where we talk about our next steps and strategies. But let's dive into segment one, which is the teacher's toolbox. And in this teacher toolbox, you are going to learn how to command attention effortlessly to get students to listen instantly. And like I said, I know exactly what it's like to be the teacher in that classroom, right? To be the teacher in that classroom that just wants students to pay attention. You did the lesson. It looks great, right? You got your essential question, you got all the objectives highlighted, you got the materials, you got everything that you want to have, and then you're getting into the lesson. And it's frustrating when what you planned in your heart and when you planned in your head, it's not able to come to fruition because the students are not doing their part and actively participating, right? Listen, if you knew, if that resonates with you, just let me know, because I know this is something that frustrated me a whole lot. Frustrating as a teacher where I'm planning this lesson and it's just not going. And to make matters worse, we are being evaluated on what the students are doing. And listen, it's funny because I told people a couple of days ago that I'm struggling with this thought, this idea, and I want to see how it sounds. And I said it on social media, and I said, if they didn't learn it, you didn't teach it. And in the comment section, so many people were like, you're wrong. That's it. That can't be it. If they didn't learn it, you didn't teach it. No, you don't understand. If there's 30 something kids in my classroom, I'm trying the best that I can. They're not getting it. They're not understanding. That has nothing to do with me. They're not paying attention. And I had to sit back and think and say, you know what? There are a lot of factors that go into whether or not a student learns something. And just assessing whether or not the students got it is not an indicator of how effective the teacher or how well the teacher understands the content knowledge. I'm gonna say that one more time. Using student assessment data is not a good enough indicator to determine how well the teacher knows the content knowledge. Because the teacher can know it, the teacher can plan amazing lessons, and the teacher can be ready. But if the students don't receive and retain it, then they're not showing that the teacher knows it. And then to make matters even worse, right? If that's not enough for you to be frustrated, not only are the students that are talking or doing something that they're not supposed to be doing off, but they're distracting the rest of the class. So now you're doing this amazing lesson. You have students that are off task themselves and distracting other students. And now, as a whole, the classroom averages are coming down. I get it. It's frustrating. So, what can we do to make sure that students are able to pay attention in the class and do the things that we require them? In order for us to do that, I think it's important for us to understand a little bit of human psychology. When we think about human psychology, I want you to answer this question and think about it. Which one is easier to learn, to lead or to follow? That's a real question. If you're watching live, you can answer it in the chat. Which one is easier to learn, to lead or to follow? Well, right now I have a 5-year-old daughter and I have a 3-year-old son. And we got this game for Christmas, and it's almost like a Nintendo Wii, but you play it kind of like with your whole body. And there's one game that they love to play. It's called Elmo Says. It's just like Simon Says, right? It's called Elmo Says. And Elmo gets up there and he does his thing. He's like, do Elmo's pose, clap your hands, shake your, I don't know, he just be doing stuff, right? So he's doing all these things. And my 5-year-old daughter, she's pretty good with it. If Elmo doesn't say, she's not going to do it. But my 3-year-old son, we've been playing that game for months, y'all. To this day, it doesn't matter if Elmo says or Elmo doesn't. My son is gonna do it. He says, Elmo says, clap your hands. He's gonna clap. And if he says, stomp your feet, my son is going to stomp. Like he's every time he stomps. Why? Because it's easier to learn how to follow than it is to learn how to lead. Right? That's what Marlene is saying. As Marshawn is saying, it's easier to learn how to follow than it is to learn how to lead. And as we're learning, we listen, the way we learn to walk, we watch other people walk. The way we learn to talk, we listen to other people talk. It's easier to learn to follow than it is to learn to lead. So when we're thinking about how we can manage the classroom of students, it's easier to help students learn how to follow the correct expectations than it is to teach them how to lead. What do you mean by that? Let me break it down. The best way I can think about it is to kind of like this. It is not just students, it's human psychology, right? It's humans all over the place. How many of us have ever been to a sporting event where we saw something like this taking place? Saw something like this taking place. You see, can you see what's on the screen right here? We here in America call that the wave. I believe that other countries probably call that the wave as well. But we call that the wave. I remember being at a game, a Panthers game a couple of weeks ago. They're not even good. And I was at the Panthers game and they just started doing the wave. And I saw it coming down my row. And guess what I did? I just got up and I just waved right along with it. Why? What am I saying? Because it's easier to follow than it is to lead. When that was the thing that was the expectation, it's what the majority of people were doing. It was the most popular decision, and it was the least restrictive option. The most popular decision because listen, this is what everybody else is doing. Why not? The least restrictive option because again, this is what everybody else is doing. This is how I can feel the energy of the crowd. Right? Anybody ever been a part of a good wave? Right? But how do we apply that to our classroom and classroom management? I'll tell you, here's the one small tweak. I told you it's gonna be one small tweak. Watch this. The principle that we need to understand in order to help students to fall in line with the expectations that we have for them in the classroom, in order to get them to pay attention, to listen to what it is that we're giving so that we can actually deliver this lesson is this. We have to make sure that we make the desired activity the most popular and least restrictive option. I made that big on the screen on purpose because somebody needs to screenshot that. You know, I like to teach principles and share strategies. I like to teach principles and share strategies. Here's the principle we need to understand that we need to make the desired activity the most popular and the least restrictive option. What do I mean by that? When we have expectations in the classroom and we know what it is that we need students to be able to do in order for them to be successful, we need to make sure that they understand that the thing that we want them to do, our desired activity, the thing that we want them to do is the most popular decision, meaning it's what everybody should be doing, what everybody says, like this is what we need to be doing, and the least restrictive option so it doesn't seem like it's isolating them. And the way that we do that there's a specific strategy that a lot of people have adopted, and I've seen it happen in classrooms all across the country. What I've seen happen in what it is called, the strategy is known as positive narration. Listen to me and pay attention closely. Positive narration is not a new word. Positive narration is not a strategy I came up with. Positive narration completely embodies what I was just saying. And with positive narration, this is just a strategy. I'm gonna go back because remember, I like to teach the principle and share the strategy. The principle, whatever you're doing, make sure that you are making the desired activity the most popular and the least restrictive. And one of the strategies to be able to do that is positive narration. Before I dive in any deeper, I need you to understand this. Whenever you come across a concept or a strategy or something like that that you may have heard in the past, I don't want you to say to yourself, I heard that before. I want you to think to yourself, have I mastered this yet? Because I'm going to dive through what positive narration looks like, but I'm also going to give some pro tips that may or may not be helpful. But listen to it, because when you're saying, listen, I've heard positive narration before. I tried that, it doesn't work. I don't want you to say that. I want you to say, okay, let me listen and see if I've mastered this thing. So let's talk about positive narration. One of the reasons why positive narration doesn't really work in some cases is because a lot of people are too robotic and rote with it. We memorize these steps that I'm about to give you, and we think it has to be scripted a particular way and it has to sound exactly like this. And if it doesn't sound exactly like this, it's not going to work. And that's not true. You can dwell and leverage your uniqueness and make positive narration work. So check this out. There are a couple of things, a couple of steps to making sure that we understand what positive narration is. There are just 5 steps. You can write them down, you can get them. Let's do it. Number 1, identify the desired behavior. Thinking about the way, what is it that you want all students to be able to do? When people in the stadium want all students to be able to do the wave, boom, the first thing they identified, everybody needs to stand up and wave their hands one by one. Okay, identify what that desired behavior is. If for you it's in the classroom, if you want students to be able to focus their eyes on the screen, then that is something that would be the desired behavior. First, identify what the desired behavior is. All right. Second, the next thing you have to do is then state the expectation. After you internally decide on what that is, then you state the expectation to the students, letting them know this is the expectation. Again, if I'm going with the wave, just to stick with the same example, the expectation is you are going to stand, wave your hand, and sit back down. You have to state what the expectation is so students know what is expected of them. The third thing that you have to do is that you have to then give the signal. Students need to know when it's time to start. Some people will say when I say go. Some people will say when the lights go on. Some people will say on the count of 3. Just give them the signal to know when it's time to begin that following in line with that expectation. All right. If we're doing the wave, the signal is the person next to you stands up. If the person next to you stands up and does it, it's your turn. Okay. So give them what the signal is going to be. And then here's what most people think when they think about positive narration. And here's how we're going to utilize it. You want to make sure that you immediately recognize 2 to 3 students who are meeting the expectation. So after you give that signal, you immediately recognize 2 or 3 students who are meeting the expectation. And this is where people go wrong. This is where people think positive narration begins. And this is why they say it doesn't work, because then they robotically, I've seen this so many times, they robotically just say things and think that students are going to fall in line. So you robotically say, James is sitting at a voice level 0. Lori is seated with her hands folded on her desk. No. And when we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago in the impact group, somebody said students can read phony a mile away, and they can. This is not time for you to change who you are. This is not time for you to be different. This is time for you to just continue being who you are, but just put foot on the gas and just follow through with this framework. So for me, when I utilize positive narration, I use it just like this, but I speak to them the same way I always speak to them. So if I were to say something, if I were to utilize positive narration, I would say something like this. All right. When I say go, you're going to turn and talk to the person next to you. Go. All right. James got to it right away. All right. Lori is speaking to her elbow partner. All right, awesome. All right, see, locked in. Like I'm just like that. I'm just calling out the actions that I want to see everybody doing. And because by calling it out, what you're doing is you're making it the most popular actions. Okay. Got that? Last thing, last step, number five. We are then going to remind students who are not meeting the expectation what the expectation is. Okay. Remind students who are not meeting the expectation what the expectation is. If the expectation was that we're going to remain seated and that have a student standing up, you don't have to get nasty. You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to be mean. You could just, oh, Anne Marie, we're sitting down at this moment. Just it could just remind them what the expectation is. Somebody asked for a question stem or a sentence stem last week. You can literally just say, the expectation is, and fill in the blank. All right. The expectation is fill in the blank. All right. So those are the five steps, right? You have the expectation in your head. You state it out of your mouth. You tell them what the expectation is. Then you give them the signal. Go. As soon as you give them the signal, you immediately recognize 2 to 3 people who are doing the action that you wanted to see happen. All right. Arlene is seated and silent. Okay, I see. I see you, Anne Marie, getting right to work. There you go. That's what I'm talking about, Jason. Right? And then Anne Marie says that she even tries to thank them. Thank you for following directions so quickly, right? But I'm making by verbalizing aloud a couple of things are happening here. By verbalizing aloud what the expectation was, I'm reminding the students of the class of what the expectation was so that they're hearing it and that reminds them that is the most popular decision. And because I'm recognizing those who are doing well and they get that good feeling of me recognizing them, now it's the least restrictive option because it's like, oh, I want I want some of that too. It also simultaneously recognizes the students who sometimes we overlook. Like, I was a student in class that always followed directions. I was a student in class that always did what I was supposed to do. Never got a phone call home. Well, I did get a phone call home one time, but it's because they said that I held, how do I say this politically correct? They said that I cornered a girl in the hallway and held a razor to her neck with a razor, like a knife. And I was like, no, that wasn't me. Turns out there was another Daryl Williams in my school. He was in 7th grade. I was in 8th grade, and he did that. Anyway, that's the only time I got a phone call home. A phone call home. They called the wrong Daryl Williams. But I never got a phone call home. I always did the right thing, did the things I was supposed to do, and rarely was recognized for it, except getting the President's Award at the end of the year. But in class, I would just go unseen, unheard, unnoticed. When we utilize things like positive narration, what we're doing is we can recognize the students in our class that are always doing the right thing and help them feel included in the classroom. All right. And now I've got a pro tip for you. Check this out. This is what I was leading to earlier. The pro tip is be yourself. Please just be yourself. And you don't have to turn into a robot. You don't have to do anything differently than what you normally do. Just recognize the activities that you need to see and shout out those who are doing it. And that is the tweak that once you do this tweak, if you're that teacher that's saying, listen, I'm planning these lessons, I'm trying the best I can, but students are not falling in line and paying attention, this is something that you can apply in your classroom tomorrow. You watch what happens when you start positively narrating and how the class can come down to a simmer. All right, now that lesson better be good because once you get their attention, you have to keep it. And we're actually going to dive into that next week. So once you get their attention, you've got to keep it. But you got to make sure that you do this and you can actually try that. All right, Marlene, I'm glad that was helpful. If that was helpful, let me know in the comment section. All right, even if you're listening on the podcast, let me know in the comments what your takeaway was there. And I hope that is something that would be helpful for you. All right, coming up is segment 2. And in the next segment, what we're going to do is we are going to dive into what I like to call the teacher toolbox. And in the teacher toolbox, we are going to give you some quick wins that you can apply in your classroom right here, right now, to make a big impact immediately. So the teacher toolbox begins right after this. All right. Just got a quick little transition. Appreciate you all. You were looking Amazing. I'm reading the chat. I hope that's super helpful. I'm here. I'm watching. Like, leave some comments in the chat. I'm here. Let's engage. And remember, now's an amazing time to start leaving questions because segment number 3, I'm going to be answering questions. I have one preloaded, but if there are more, I'd love to answer them right here, right now, live on the spot. So start getting those ready. Put them in the chat. I'm going into the teacher tool, the new teacher quick tip right here, right now. All right, it is time for the new teacher quick tip, which is a segment in which I'm going to give you a tip that you can utilize right now. Apply this right now, and you will see a big shift in your classroom. And when I'm talking about the new teacher quick tip this week, you know me, I'm always a storyteller. And here's what I was thinking. I was in the classroom recently, and the teacher was just telling me that it doesn't matter what she does, but she cannot get to a place where her call and response works. She cannot get to a place where when she says it, her call and response is when I say make lemons. No, when I say life. No, here we go. Here's her call and response. When life gives you lemons and the students are supposed to respond, make lemonade. All right, that's her call and response. And she says, I just can't get the students to do it. So I went into her classroom and I watched her do it. And she explained to the students, like, this is what I'm going to do in order to use my call and response. I'm going to say, when life gives you lemons and you respond, make lemonade. And she practiced it with them. She said, all right, let's practice. When life gives you lemons. And there are about 17 students in that class. I know it was a pretty small class. About 17 students in that class, a middle school class. And there were about 4 students that said, make lemonade. There were some other students that were still talking. There were some other students that were just not talking, but not doing anything, just looking down on the desk and writing, and some students that were not paying attention. And she said, okay, and moved on and got into the lesson. So then, as the lesson was going, later when it started getting a little bit out of control, I was sitting over there on the couch. She had a couch in her classroom. I was sitting over there on the couch, and as it started to get a little bit out of control, she said, when life gives you lemons. And guess how many students said, make lemonade? Those same 4 students from the front, you know what I'm saying? Those same 4 students said, make lemonade. And other students kept talking. The students were not paying attention. And I just sat there and said to myself, and so I didn't say anything to myself in that moment. I sat there. Class was over and she came to me. She said, see, I told you it doesn't work. And my response to her is what the new teacher quick tip of the week this week. My response to her is what I need you to know. I said, when you use the call and response, you tried to practice it. But when you practiced it, you didn't have 100% buy-in. Here's what I need you to do. When you practice something, don't just practice it until you get it right. Practice it until they can't get it wrong. Whew. Don't just practice it till they get it right. Practice it till they can't get it wrong. And Marlene says, this sounds just like my class. Listen, I got you. What do I mean by that? The way that she practiced it was the way that she could expect students to perform. Only 4 students responded the first time. And by her moving on, what she indicated was that's good enough. And if that's good enough, why do I need to do anything else? So what happens is that the students were like, okay, that's fine. We're good to go. But they had never met the expectation of 100% focus. So if this is what you want, watch this. If this is what you want, when you practice it, whether it's a call and response, whether it is a new procedure, whether it's the way we do the exit ticket and do now, whatever it is that you're working on, if there's a certain way that it needs to be done, don't just practice it until they get it right. Practice it until they can't get it wrong. That's not a quote that I came up with. It was on the show Private Practice a long time ago. I really love the quote and I never left it. But with that call and response, she should have said it and said, "Up, that wasn't 100%. We need to do it again." Said it, that wasn't 100%. We need to do it again. Said it, boom, that was 100%. Awesome. Let's do it again to make sure you got it. All right. Because we don't want to just practice it until they get it right. We practice it until they can't get it wrong. Meaning, at some point, listen, we started doing this, and it's February right now. We started doing this in February. We do this today and tomorrow and in the next class and 2 or 3 times a class after that. Eventually, it gets to a point when you hold them to the expectation of 100%, when you say, no, we're doing this, everybody gets it. When you hold them to that standard and that expectation, then it gets to the point where you stand at the front of the classroom and say, well, life gives you lemons. And they say, make lemonade and get silent because it's became innate, because it's what they do. Because you didn't just practice it until they got it right. You practice it until they couldn't get it wrong. And don't miss this. It is not the phrase that works. The fact that she said, when I say make lemons, you say make lemons, it's not that. Because to be honest, she stole that from another teacher. She said this other teacher, she uses it and it works for her students. It's not the words, y'all. It's not the words that make it work for the students. It's the fact that when that teacher said it, she made sure that there was 100% compliance and that she worked with it and didn't just say it until they got it right, but practice it until they couldn't get it wrong, and it becomes second nature. So that's a quick tip that you can utilize. Whatever it is that you need students to do consistently with fidelity, don't just practice it until you get it right. Practice it until they can't get it wrong. All right. So hopefully that is helpful to somebody. If it is, definitely let me know, because up next we've got the Teachers Lounge, and the Teachers Lounge is where we are going to answer your specific questions. I'm looking at the chat as well as looking at our impact community to see what questions we can answer, and we're heading into the Teachers Lounge right after this. All right, great time, good job, Marshawn. I'm glad that's how you do it. Don't just practice it till you get it right, practice it till you can't get it wrong. If you have questions, now's the time. If there are no questions, that is a-okay. Here we go. Welcome to the Teachers Lounge, not the Teachers Lounge that talks about students and complains about issues, but where we ask questions and provide actionable strategies for solutions. So the first question that we have is actually from an impact community member, and that is going to be from Mr. Rashad. And I'll make it big so that you can actually see it. But Rashad asked this question about misconceptions. And his question says, how do you plan for misconceptions? How do you plan for and address possible student misconceptions in your lesson planning? And I think that that is an amazing question, because in order to effectively teach, you've got to anticipate that students are not going to have everything 100% of the time. Right? There are probably going to be some misconceptions. There are probably going to be some things that students don't 100% know. There are probably going to be some issues that students have. So how do you anticipate and prepare for those misconceptions before this thing even begins? So there's a couple of things that I would say to you, Rashad. One, I would tap in with community. There are other teachers, whether you're a new teacher or whether you're an experienced teacher, there are other teachers that are in your building that have experience, or maybe in your building, maybe not in your building, but there are other teachers that have experienced some of the things that you're going through and are going to be able to answer some of those questions. So whether they had the same exact students, which could be the case, or they just had similar students, sometimes teachers that are kind of in that building are familiar with how things go in that building, if that's making sense, right? So for me, sometimes what I would encourage my staff to do is, like a fourth grade teacher that's dealing with something like, man, I don't, my students aren't really getting it. They could talk to a third grade teacher, right, that had those students last year, and be able to say, listen, did they struggle with single digit multiplication? Oh yeah, they definitely did. Okay, so I can anticipate that they're going to struggle with this double digit, right? So sometimes communicating with other teachers will definitely be helpful. Another thing that I would like to use is list out all the things when you're looking at an objective, when you're looking at a standard, sorry. List out all the things students have to do in order to make that the verb in that standard come true. So whatever the standard is, list out all the things students have to do in order to make the verb in that standard come true. Those then become your lesson objectives. As you're going through all of those things, some things students are definitely going to know how to do. Some things students are not going to know how to do. Some things you're unsure about. The things that they definitely know how to do, you're going to use those things to teach the things that they don't. So I know I'm getting a little bit confusing, but I'm trying to be quick. But watch this. Let's stick with that multiplication example. If I want them to do double digit multiplication, they're going to need to know single digit multiplication. They're going to need to know addition, right? They're going to need to know how to grouping, right? Those types of things are things they're going to have to know. Even numbers, right? Stuff like that. So the things that they know, okay, even numbers, they learned that in second grade. They should be good with that. Single digit addition, single digit multiplication. I don't know how they're doing that, right? If they're not doing well with that, then what we can do is a mini lesson over a previous skill that they should have already learned to assess kind of where they are. If they do well on it, boom, I can move into the lesson. If not, I know that's something I had to teach before we can teach all the rest of the objectives. And I know that that was really brief. Inside of Impact, we actually have a course called Properly Planned Effective Lessons, and that's going to help you, Rashad, be able to do that. And let me just shout out this response real quick because Jim Williams is saying you could give a pre-assessment. For those who don't know who Jim Williams is, that's my mom. That's my mom, a 20-year educator. Show some love in the chat, y'all. Say, glad you're out tonight. It's kind of past your bedtime. It's 7 o'clock. But she is a 20-year educator, now a school counselor. Shout out to you. But yes, you could give a pre-assessment, and that'll let you know if students are they what misconceptions they have before you get into the lesson. So shout out to you. Looks like you've been reading my notes because that was my next thing. All right. I'm looking at some questions in the chat. And here is one from Marshawn. Marshawn is asking, how do you get students to move past their trauma to even engage in learning? Can we just pause on that for a second? Because it is so true that students first have to believe that they can do it before they actually try. Students have to believe that they can do it before they actually try. That is so true. What you're describing, Marshawn, is learned helplessness. And learned helplessness is when students experience failure so much that they no longer even see the potential for success. So when they're in fourth grade trying to do fractions, they remember back to third grade when they first saw it and like, I can't do, I don't know what is like their brain is doing this thing, right? It's like, what, I don't fractions, it doesn't work. So now in fourth grade, you give me fractions with unlike denominators. I'm not even going to pick up the pencil because I remember I'm not good at this. So how do you get students to move past their trauma to engage in learning? It's an amazing question. The first thing that we have to do is we have to help them experience a win. Because when they experience a win, that's going to allow them to see success in themselves. And when they see and feel success, then they're going to want to repeat that feeling. So it could be something small. It doesn't have to be anything extreme or extravagant, but helping them experience a small win is going to help build that confidence muscle inside them that tells them I can do this. Now, you may have to do it time and time again because remember, depending on the grade level that you teach, you may be fighting against 12, 13, 14 years of trauma, 12, 13, 14 years of I can't, 12, 13, 14 years of I'm not good enough, right? So in order to combat that, you may not be able to combat that with just one small win, but helping them achieve a small win and stack those wins over time is going to build up their confidence to say, okay, I can actually do this. They need to believe that they are capable of doing the possible. Can I say that one more time, Mashawn? They need to believe that they are capable of doing the possible. Show them that this thing that you're giving them it is possible for it to be done. Sometimes when we think something is impossible, we don't even try. But you just have to first show them that it is possible. Show them that other people have had success with it, that you've had success with it, that they're leading towards success with it. Show them that it is possible and believe and help them to believe in themselves that if it is possible, I am capable. I'm capable because I have seen success in the past. So help them to see success. And once they see success, they believe that they are capable. And once they believe they're capable, they know that they can do the possible. All right. Shout out to you, Mark. Love that question. All right. Let's go. Anne Marie is asking, how do you handle out of seat students? Right. Even with procedures in place, I have someone always up, blowing their nose, throwing away trash, extra copies, etc. Even if I pause my lesson until they are seated. Right? Right? So check this out. What it sounds like is I'm thinking about the expectations that we had. Anne-Marie, this would be an amazing opportunity to practice the positive narration that we utilized earlier. So let's go through the 5 skills of the positive narration. The first thing that we said we want to make sure we do is we state in our mind what the expectation is. So if you are having them work on an assignment and he knows that there is a student that, or typically you're knowing this now, a student, somebody's probably going to want to get up. Somebody's probably going to brush their, blow their nose, throw something away. They're going to go get up and get copies, right? You know that they're going to want to do this. You have to clearly state in the expectation, we're going to remain seated in our seats while we do whatever the assignment is or whatever the activity is, right? So we have that first in our mind. Then we communicate that with students. All right. When I say go, remaining seated in your seats, you're going to turn to page 97 in your workbooks. Ready? Go. Immediately after you say go, because right now I'm assuming that everybody is seated at this point of you saying this. Immediately after you say go, because you know that standing up is an issue that you have in your classroom, the positive narration that I would use here is we're calling out people that are seated, right? Emery, awesome job remaining seated in your seat. Okay. Now watch this. Imagine you have somebody get up at that same moment. I'm not going to address that student. Remember the wave, right? We're going to make the popular decision we're going to make the desired decision the most popular option. Now I'm going to go to a student near them or in that vicinity or even their partner or somebody that was at their table, right? And say, Jaleesa, awesome job staying seated and following directions. Right? Oh, Marshawn, I see you over there in your seat. Yeah, 3 times I just called out 3 different people that are sitting in their seat, okay? On purpose. So now if I have the student that's got up to blow their nose, remember the sentence structure I gave you earlier. It's just, James, the expectation is that we're in our seat. That's it, right? That's it. So now he's like, I was blown away. I was throwing the tissue away. I was doing it's not a back and forth. It's not a time for that. No, the expectation is that we are in our seats. And I'm going right back into what I'm doing. Now, if he ignores me, now if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do there, if he's still up, now is when we can start looking at assigning consequences and things like that, which now that's a whole nother tier, right? Of course, we want to make sure that we're building strong relationships and things like that. But there also is a time where sometimes we got to administer some consequences. So there is a time in which we could just associate, all right, that's your warning. I was just blowing my nose. Sometimes, Emery, this might be you. Sometimes we feel like I don't want to give him a consequence for just blowing his nose. He's falling short of the expectation. The expectation is that we are seated. You stated it. You called out 3 people that were doing it. He knows what the expectation is. You reminded him of the expectation. All right, at this point, it's okay. You blowing my nose? Not right now. Okay, it's all right. All right, or remind him of whatever the protocol is. Is the protocol that they raise their hand to go ask for tissue to blow their nose? It's okay. Just reinforce that. That's okay. Listen, this is just your warning. Remember, next time, raise your hand and I'll let you go get a tissue. Something of that nature. You just got to let them know. Here's the expectation. Here's where you are. They're not in alignment. Okay? But you got it. You got it. You got it. And Marie said you like breaking it into single steps like that. Yep. Definitely do that. Definitely break it up into steps will be super helpful. All right. So you are amazing. And that's actually going to lead us right into the next segment. We're not even going to take a break or anything like that. It's going to lead us right into our final segment of the day, which is our segment number 4, which we like to call the exit ticket. And as any good teacher, the exit ticket is going to be answered right here at the end. You can answer it in the comment section. You can answer it in the comments if you're listening to the podcast. Write out 3 phrases that you will use when positively narrating. Write out 3 phrases you will use when positively narrating. Why am I asking you to do that? Because I want you to prepare now so that you don't have to think about it on the spot. Sometimes that leads to our anxiety. On the spot, I don't even know what I'm going to call out. Anne-Marie, we know that we're going to focus on students getting out of their seat because that's something that happens in your classroom, right? So, what is something that you will say when they're positive narrating? Using your own voice, using your own uniqueness, focusing just on you. For me, like I said, I'll say, okay, I see you, Anne-Marie, sitting in your seat. That's me, right? If that's not you, don't use those terms, right? But you say how you want to say it in your particular way. All right. So write out 3 phrases that you will use when positively narrating. And remember that this is a small tweak that some of us we don't get, right? Some of us don't quite get this, and we're planning these lessons, and the lessons are amazing. We have these materials, and they're fantastic, and we're excited. But then we get into the lesson and it falls flat because students are not paying attention and they're distracting other students. We've got to get them to pay attention in order for them to receive and retain this information. And here's a small tweak that you can apply right now in your classroom to increase the student attention so that you can deliver the information. Now, remember, like I said earlier, once you have their attention, Now it's on you to keep their attention, right? So next week we're actually going to talk about an engagement strategy that you can use to keep students' attention once you have it. So tune in next week to make sure that you get access to that. But until then, make sure that you apply the strategy that we learned here today so that you can make the impact in your classroom that you've always wanted and make the difference that your students deserve. All right, Darwin Jr., and I'll see you on the next one. And if you are here with us live, we are locked and loaded. Super proud of you sticking here with us. I hope that was helpful. I hope that was good. I hope you had a good time. And I hope you join us next week because next week we really are doing something different. There was a point in time where every week I was doing kind of the same webinar. I moved away from that. I felt like it wasn't the best way to give knowledge. I love teaching, so I'm here to teach, right? Also, listen, the QR code is on the screen. The bit.ly is on the screen for those of us that are looking for credit. You can type that in. It'll give you a certificate. Anne Marie, this time you got it. Marshawn, go ahead, go get it. Right, Marlene, shout out. Make sure that you come on back. And if you would like the certificate, go ahead and get that. It is there on the screen. I also like to let you know, and that in a couple of minutes, I'm transitioning to an exclusive workshop that is just for impact. And if you are still confused as to what impact is all about, make sure that you I'm gonna put that on the screen so I don't forget. If you're still confused as to what impact is all about, check it out. The link is already in the description. You can get started for free. Like check 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 it out, right? There's so many people in the community that are there to help you, to assist you. You've seen them here in the chat tonight, and you get exclusive content, exclusive trainings, and a new course release every month. So shout out to the Impact family. All right. Oh, Anne Marie. So this has been the most relevant one so far. I appreciate you saying that because listen, whenever you are giving that sort of feedback, I know where to go from here. All right. So Anne Marie, join us next week or join us inside of Impact and so that you can get the upcoming trainings, whatever works for you. Do you offer workshops over the summer that we can use for flex days? Mm, I do. You can send an email, Anne Marie, to info@darrellwilliamsjr.com and we can talk about that. But I definitely do. All right. And Marlene, we are following directions. I appreciate doing the best I can. All right. All right. What was I gonna say? So I think that might have been it. And also we have that workshop coming up. So the complete 180 workshop, the it's not 100% ready for sale yet, right? Or it's not ready to kind of be put out there, but we have free tickets, we have VIP tickets. We're getting that all together. By this time next week, I promise you, I'll have a link for you to be able to sign up. You saw Sean Woodley earlier. You saw Lori Henderson in the chat. We've got 13 other presenters, a total of 16, including myself, 16 presenters putting on a week-long virtual conference that you can access kind of at will. It's not live like this. We do have some live components, but you can access it on your lunch. You can access it after school, whenever you need to. 16 presenters, 15 breakout sessions. Like this is mind blowing to me. Keynote presentations, and we're really doing it up. So you definitely want to be there. Be here on the next one so I can show you how to sign up for that. And Marlene, I appreciate you being here. And Marshawn, same to you. I appreciate it. You're amazing. This is going to be podcast released next week once we chop it up and edit and do some stuff like that. But you get to say that you were here live in the person and got to ask questions and things like that. So you're cool. But I appreciate you being here. If there's nothing else, I will see you on the next one. Take care. Same time, same place next week. In WL Summit. I'm trying to see what was the WL Summit. You got it, Betty. No worries. Marlene, I'm trying to remember what the WL Summit was. Oh, world language. Yes, classroom management and world language summit. Yes. And I'm doing the next summit coming up as well. They're having one for neurodivergence. Kimberly, glad you were quiet tonight, but I'm glad that you that you popped out and said something. You got it. You got it. I'm glad. I'm glad that you came as well. Glad you watched on YouTube. All right. You got it. All right, I'm gonna end the stream and remember, same time, same place. You can actually go back to the same link if you want to get the reminders and the text messages and things like that. New teacher, big impact / workshop, so that you don't forget. But same time, same place. I'll see you next week. Okay. All right. All right. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye, mom.